Distinction 1. Mother died today, or maybe yesterday. I can't be sure. The telegram from the home says, "Your mother passed away. Funeral tomorrow. Deep sympathy," which leaves the mother doubtful. It could have been yesterday. The home for aged persons is at Marinjo, some 50 miles from Algiers. With the 2 o'clock bus, I should get there well before nightfall. Then I can spend the night there, keeping the usual vigil beside the body, and be back here by tomorrow evening. I have fixed up with my employer for 2 days' leave. Obviously, under the circumstances, he couldn't refuse. Still, I had an idea he looked annoyed, and I said, without thinking, "Sorry, sir, but it's not my fault, you know." Afterward, it struck me I needn't have said that. I had no reason to excuse myself. It was up to him to express his sympathy and so forth. Probably he will do so the day after tomorrow, when he sees me in black. For the present, it is almost as if mother weren't really dead. The funeral will bring it home to me, put an official seal on it, so to speak. It took the 2 o'clock bus. It was an amazing afternoon. I would lunch, as usual, at Celeste's restaurant. Everyone was most kind, and Celeste said to me, "There is no one like a mother." When I felt they came with me to the door, it was something of a rush, getting away, as at the last moment I had to call in at Emmanuel's place to borrow his black tie and mourning band. He lost his uncle a few months ago. I had to run to catch the bus. I suppose it was hurrying like this, with what the glare of the road and from sky, the reek of gasoline and the jolts, that made me feel so drowsy. Anyhow, I slept most of the way. When I woke up, I was leaning against the soldier. He grinned and asked me if I would come from a long way off, and I just nodded. To cut things short, I wasn't in a mood for talking. The home is a little over a mile from the village. I went there on foot. I asked to be allowed to see mother at once, but the doorkeeper told me I must see the warden first. He wasn't free, and I had to wait a bit. The doorkeeper chatted with me while I waited. Then he led me to the office. The warden was a very small man with grey hair and a Legion of Honor rosette in his buttonhole. He gave me a long look with his watery blue eyes. Then we shook hands, and he held mine so long that I began to feel embarrassed. After that, he consulted a register on his table and said, "Madame Mersault entered the home 3 years ago. She had no private means and depended entirely on you." I had a feeling he was blaming me for something and started to explain, but he cut me short. "There is no need to excuse yourself, my boy. I've looked up the record, and obviously you weren't in a position to see that she was properly cared for. She needed someone to be with her all the time, and young men in jobs like yours don't get too much pay. In any case, she was much happier in the home." I said, "Yes, sir, I am sure of that." Then he added, "She had good friends here, old folks like herself, and one gets on better with people of one's own generation. You are much too young. You couldn't have been much of a companion to her." That was so. When we lived together, mother was always watching me, but we hardly ever talked. During her first few weeks at the home, she used to cry a good deal, but that was only because she hadn't settled down. After a month or two, she would have cried if she had been told to leave the home, because this, too, would have been a wrench. That was why, during the last year, I seldom went to see her. Also, it would have meant losing my Sunday, not to mention the trouble of going to the bus, getting my ticket, and spending 2 hours on the journey each way. The warden went on talking, but I didn't pay much attention. Finally, he said, "Now, I suppose you would like to see your mother." I rose without replying, and he led the way to the door. As we were going down the stairs, he explained, I have had the body moved to our little mortuary so as not to upset the other old people. You understand? Every time there is a death here, they are in a nervous state for 2 or 3 days, which means, of course, extra work and worry for our staff. We crossed a courtyard where there was a number of old men talking amongst themselves in a little groups. They fell silent as we came up with them. Then, behind our backs, the chattering began again. Their voices reminded me of a parakeets in a cage. Only the sound wasn't quite so shrill. The warden stopped outside the entrance of a small, low building. So here I leave you, Monsieur Manceau. If you want me for anything, you will find me in my office. We propose to have the funeral tomorrow morning. That will enable you to spend the night beside your mother's coffin, as no doubt you would wish to do. Just one more thing. I gathered from your mother's friends that she wished to be buried with the rites of the church. I have made the arrangements for this, but I thought I should let you know. I thanked him. So far as I knew, my mother, though not a professed atheist, had never given a thought to religion in her life. I entered the mortuary. It was a bright, spotlessly clean room, with whitewashed walls and a big skylight. The furniture consisted of some chairs and trestles. Two of the latter stood upon the center of the room, and the coffin rested on them. The lid was in place, but the screws had been given only a few turns, and their nickeled heads stuck out above the wood, which was stained dark walnut. An Arab woman, a nurse, I supposed, was sitting beside the bier. She was wearing a blue smock and had a rather gaudy scarf wound round her hair. Just then the keeper came up behind me. He would evidently been running, as he was a little out of breath. We put the lid on, but I was told to unscrew it when you came, so that you could see her. While he was going up to the coffin, I told him not to trouble. What's that? He exclaimed. You don't want me to? No, I said. He put back the screwdriver in his pocket and stared at me. I realized then that I shouldn't have said no, and it made me rather embarrassed. After eyeing me for some moments, he asked, Why not? But he didn't sound reproachful. He simply wanted to know. Well, really I couldn't say, I answered. He began twiddling his white mustache, then, without looking at me, said gently, I understand. He was a pleasant-looking man, with blue eyes and ruddy cheeks. He drew up a chair for me near the coffin and seated himself just behind. The nurse got up and moved toward the door. As she was going by, the keeper whispered in my ear, It is a tumor she has, poor thing. Distinction 1 ended. Page 6.